Okay, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Another week of Bill and Ammon's Bogus Hangout. How's everybody doing today?
Doing awesome.
Doesn't matter.
Another day of chaos.
That's a good one. Another day of chaos. Yeah,
Because that about covers it.
that covers it pretty well.
Well, one thing we could talk about, SiteGround, which killed SEO by the Sea because it expired, in spite of the fact that two of us offered to pay for it without wanting any control or anything else, and getting shot down by their compliance department, who I understand they're operating under some absolute directives. Somebody commented on social media that the site was down, and come on, SiteGround, how about doing something about this? And whoever was monitoring SiteGround's social media account picked up on it, apparently ran it up the ladder to somebody that had some stroke in the company and was able to make a reasonable decision. And SiteGround put the site back up and said they're going to be hosting it free, because it is, in fact, quite a collection of valuable information. You know, some people are kind of pissed off because SiteGround was made to be a hero here. Like I said, any company is going to be under some rather strict guidelines on stuff like this, kind of like HIPAA or handling PII. We don't know. I spoke a couple of times to the compliance department. I doubt I was speaking to their attorney. I was probably speaking to some intern or clerk who had their scripted responses, and I said, I don't want control. I just want to make sure it doesn't go down. If you'll extend it, or if you'll let me pay for it, I'll give you my credit card information. Don't want any. Nope, can't do that. It's a typical scripted response, and I understand that. That's probably the way that their organization is set up. So, I'm not saying that they deserve a place under the bus. I'm just glad that the site is back up again, and
My understanding was that it was up for a year.
No, the domain was registered for about another year. The hosting was going to expire at the end of July, and Bill's brother-in-law Alan managed to get them to say they'd extend it. They didn't say 30 days, but the inference was a month, to give us time to get the probate thing handled so that we could actually get control of the account. But they went about 2 weeks and then killed it. Somebody apparently noticed and said, oh my God, this is expired. Die, damn site, die.
There's probably someone whose job each day is to see what's not being paid, and if the 2 weeks pass, you turn it off.
And SiteGround isn't a little tiny company. I mean, they're not 15 people.
Well, for sure, that could happen.
You've got some bureaucracy built into the organization.
Yeah.
And, I understand that. But thankfully, SEO by the Sea was back up very shortly. And, very shortly after that fellow posted on social media, apparently somebody ran it up the ladder, got an immediate decision, and they said, put it back. And they did. So we've got at least a year there of free. Whether they're going to continue to host it beyond that, we don't know yet. And I already told them, I'll put it up on my host. Joe Hall of Hall Analysis said he would also put it on his servers free of charge. There's been a whole half a dozen people that have jumped up, say, I'll pay for it. There's some valuable stuff in there. So that emergency has been handled for the time being.
I don't think we'll ever lose the content, because I scraped it.
So did I.
The week after. Yeah, I'm sure I did. I know there's at least 2 other people that did as well. So there's a difference between, if it completely disappeared, then I could put a version of it up, but it would be not the back end. It would just be the scrape of it, which, as far as keeping the content alive, is great. So it won't ever disappear. But if anybody wants to then take the site forward operationally in the future, we'd need it as it is at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any intent on the family's part to do anything with the site in terms of operations. They just wanted to kind of preserve the legacy and make it available for people. You know, I suppose that if, you know, somebody had the desire to monetize it somehow, they could.
Shouldn't be monetized.
Well,
No,
it shouldn't be, you know, that's my opinion as well. But I mean, I suppose it would be a possibility, but it would not be an easy thing to do. And, you know, I don't think there's any intention on their part to do it. They just want to preserve the legacy. And that's, I think that most of our concern is just to make sure that all that effort that Bill put into writing those articles remain accessible to folks, because there's some real wisdom there.
Yeah, I'd like to see someone go to every place that he's ever published and said, yeah, we want to put it all in one place so we can cross-link the stuff he did elsewhere without passing value.
Yeah.
Give them, you know, canonicalize it to their site, so it's just like it's being syndicated. I mean, you know, these places actually owe Bill for what he
Oh, for
did
sure.
for them.
Doesn't that also kind of cross over what's going on with the search engine journal right now, with them rewriting and repurposing content on the same URL without letting the original authors know?
That's bullshit.
I would agree.
Sorry, Steve. I couldn't agree.
I mean, because it was pointed out that somebody had written a great article 2 years ago, and it got a lot of traffic. It was a popular article, did well, and somebody wrote an update for it, and the journal decided that instead of publishing the new article on a new URL as a new article, they just took the old one and used that URL for the new article because it already had a lot of traffic.
And remove the other.
it removed the other.
Oh, no.
Well,
That's a no-no.
I have heard both sides of that argument, and I'm not convinced that either one. I think that
Okay, you know what's really wrong with that, Doc? Google gives the first author. That's the unique content part.
well, but the
So
thing
that's
is,
bullshit what they did. That's spam.
the individual under whose byline the second version, and I say version, the second article was posted, is someone I trust implicitly.
Oh,
And
I
he
agree.
assures us he did not plagiarize. He did not even look at it until the question arose after the fact. You know, he had seen it and disagreed with some points, but he did not compare to it or anything else until after the fact.
And I don't even care about, I mean, I don't, well, I shouldn't say I don't care, but my issue had nothing to do with either writer. My issue was with the platform and the editorial process that they put in place. Yes. Do we remove old content all the time? Do we rewrite content? Yes. Do we take advantage of people's bylines and old content without letting them know? Absolutely not.
That's a problem. Yeah.
That's the issue, in my mind, especially when you're talking with a industry significant platform like the journal, you know, SEJ. There,
Right.
you know, a lot of people read that, and they have to hold themselves to a far higher standard than anybody else. Because I mean, there's a reason there's a lot of us call it the urinal for, you know, I mean.
Well, it deserved it for a few years.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure they don't still deserve it, but
Well, it's,
the editorial decision was really weak and should have been handled differently.
Well, my inclination is to believe that the second article was a whole new article.
Oh, I agree.
In their eyes as well as the author. But
And it should have been on a whole new URL.
But that first author absolutely should have been made aware.
yeah, but it's not even good SEO. It's like,
Well, that
stupid
too.
No, if you're
SEO.
changing the content on the URL.
Well, it's like Google knows what was there before. If you don't know that, you don't know anything about SEO. Google knows every word that was ever on any page.
The similarity between the two was a stretch. It dealt with the same topic, okay, but contextually it was radically different.
Nah,
So yeah, Google might see them as thematically similar, but not to the point that they would consider that this is a replacement of that. It wasn't that close, okay, by any
that was
stretch.
someone just leveraging the rank of the other post.
To me, yeah, to me, that's the issue that I see is that SEJ really kind of stepped on it by not consulting the original author and by trying to funnel those links into a new article. And yeah, the obvious thing is that URL should have been a brand new URL.
Right. And they should have left the old article up.
That too. But the problem I had with the whole situation, and it's not the first one that happened to involve SCJ, is that there has been a lot of mudslinging and name calling without one of the parties being part of the conversation or present to, in groups where they could not even be privy to it. And I just have zero patience for that crap. It'd be like if the five of us here decide that we're going to rake somebody over the coals and deliberately exclude them from the conversation, that to me is just childish and wrong.
Yeah.
And I left that group yesterday for that reason, because I just tired of seeing that crap. It's the second time it's happened in as many weeks.
I have a question about URLs since we brought it up. So if a website has a number of blogs and the URL for each of the blogs is website.com/article title, right? And then they change the URL for all the articles to website.com/blog/article title. Do they lose all the SEO juice from the old? I mean, it's a new URL. Do they lose?
There was a time when you would lose a small percentage of it by doing the redirects and inserting that blog into the URL. Supposedly now you don't even bleed. You don't lose that little bit any more than you do through a normal redirect. But yeah, you just go into your htaccess and you do a rewrite
And
that's going to add blog into those URLs.
okay,
But the problem there is if, for instance, if you've got a page, your contact us page is domain.com/contact us, okay?
yeah,
You've got to be very careful about how you do that redirect, or that rewrite, I should say, so that you don't insert blog into the URL of absolutely everything. Because you don't need that blog in front of the contact us.
exactly.
Okay? So, there's a way to do it. And that's
Okay.
the way to do it. And supposedly, as of a couple of years ago, you don't even lose any of the juice by doing that. But for a long time, you did. Any redirect you had, you bled a little bit.
That's what I
And-
thought. So that's
And any
why I
links, you
asked
bleed a little bit anyway. You just bled a little bit more if it was a redirect. Because you're basically doing it. A link loses a little bit of juice. If you link twice via the original link and the redirect, then you've lost, again, roughly double the juice. But supposedly the redirects, 301s and 302s no longer do that.
Yeah, but you gotta have pretty good reason to start. Why put the word blog in there?
Yeah, that's, I would
don't
question
see
the
it.
wisdom of that. I would even question doing that with category, unless it was an e-com site.
Well, there's a way to get around category. You put
Yeah.
a blog there. You
Yeah.
can program that out of it.
I think for site structure, sticking blog in there is quite important. It depends what else you've got on the site. If your site is only articles, then it doesn't really matter if they're up top level. But if there are other sections, etc., it might be very useful to actually compartmentalize those into sections, etc. The big issue from what you said, Zara, is if you don't redirect, then you're in trouble.
Then
Then
you're
you lose it all. Yeah.
right.
All the links
Absolutely.
coming in are just going to go to nothing. So Google will go, well, that's all gone. But then, as Terry said, Google knows that those pages were there and they're gone. They're going, well, oh, look, there's a whole new set of new pages. I'll index those. But this is duplicate of what was there. And it doesn't forget what was there. So if you don't do the redirect, you're in big poo.
Yep. Big poo. I like that.
And that's a lot of management of redirects.
Yeah.
So again, that's what I found with SEOs. They don't see it as a big deal when they start fooling around with URL structure. To me, that's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah, there's
I
gotta be a
agree.
good reason for it. Yeah.
But when you have situations, I have situations where I'm migrating sites for businesses together. It's part of what I do, not most of it, but a big part of what I do. So migration of sites, the most I ever did was 7 into 1. That was fun. And there was some e-commerce and amongst that as well. So yes, there are instances where you're doing it. It's not just a case of sticking blog on there. You've got all sorts of services to put together, etc. And you've got to work out all those redirects. And it's important to keep all that those backlinks coming in from all those separate sites coming into where that content now is, so that it all works and flows through. So get very, very complex.
Yeah, and especially if it's an e-com site that's got
Oh,
a million pages, it can become.
Yeah, fortunately, the
wanted-
7 into 1 I did wasn't a million pages. It was only a few thousand, but
Still.
I've got another one of the cards, the 3 into 1 at the moment as well. So that's fun. The hardest part actually isn't the redirects of the themselves. It's working out where the overlaps in content are, and what do we do with that content?
Mhm.
How do we merge that content? And actually, that brings us back to what we were talking about in the first place. It's like, are you putting different content on a new URL, or do you merge those two? They're all going to be brand new URLs anyway. In this particular case, it's not a problem. But I can see situations where if you were merging two sites together, you may want to change a big part of a particular URL because you've merged that stuff together. Come back to Terry's stuff, they know that you changed it, and that page will get reevaluated.
I did a school site with about, I think it was 4 old sites where they just kept building new sites at new URLs.
Oh my
And
God.
it was on Microsoft migrating to Unix.
Oh, the old upper and lowercase problems,
No
yes.
hid access, buddy.
Lots of fun there.
Well, it was easy to fix. You just have to understand that on ASP, you put the redirect at the top of the page and it never loads. Then I just wrote the pages from the script.
Oh, has anybody seen any dramatic effect of this value
content?
algorithm?
So there's a lot of SEOs out with metal detectors finding nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Although Lily Ray did post something earlier today. She's found 4 sites that may have been affected. And that's it.
Well,
Tumbleweed elsewhere.
A week ago, she had found 3 of them. So one more
right.
site through the week. So
Yeah.
she found those 3 in about as many days, and then the 4th one took another week. So it does not look like it's something that's hammering 40% of the web.
But we did say last week, didn't we, that we thought they'd maybe let it roll out first and then turn it up. So I think the next few months is going to be interesting on this one,
I
because
think that's
people are going to sit there and think, am I being affected by this?
It could be just affecting a couple of places too.
Yeah.
So people
Mhm.
could be looking at changes and saying, well, it moved a couple. That's just normal flux these days.
Yeah.
Well, it may also be affecting the sites where people don't really want to tell other people that their site's been affected. The auto-generated stuff that's now failed. I haven't heard anybody bleating on about how they lost all their income now because Google's done a change.
In
But
my
maybe I'm not
opinion,
moving in the right circles for that, to find that information.
yeah, I believe if you're getting hit by that one, you've already been hit by several before, and you don't even really notice. It's just part of the trend you've already seen
Well,
for years.
there's a point where we realize that if you're getting hit, you deserved it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never seen one where they didn't deserve it. Never seen it. Never. I've seen SEOs who thought they didn't deserve it, but when I
Oh, always.
I definitely saw it.
Yeah.
Spam to most SEOs is sites positioned above me.
So what else has been going on?
I was
Oh.
looking at the changes to the meta descriptions. That was kind of interesting.
Which one now, Terry?
They did an update to the snippet stuff, and they showed
Oh,
some
yeah.
examples of. To me, it looks like you may not have to have the keywords in the description anymore to get used.
I would agree with that. If the description is representative of the context
Right.
of the page, yeah, I would agree with that.
But in the past, you had to pretty well have the exact keywords for the term that's in the search box
Yeah,
to show your description.
I'm kind of thinking that this might be another instance where they brought something in and then slowly dialed it up, because initially they, when they started grabbing a blurb out of the page rather than the description, initially they were really out in left field sometimes. I mean,
Yeah,
they grabbed some stuff early on that just had no representation to the query or the existing description, and they're getting a whole lot better. They're still ignoring the meta description a lot of time, but I don't see them missing the mark anywhere near as much on what they're putting in the SERP. So that's improving. And I'm wondering if that's just because they've just been tweaking it and dialing it in a little bit.
I have been thinking about a technique where you launch a new page without a meta description. And then once it's indexed, you see what Google gives it as a meta description, and then copy that and chuck it into the description. Job done.
Well, that doesn't do much for you except give you a green on rank math,
That's true.
Hey, if you're doing a site, e-com site with 10,000 products, and you have to write descriptions, they're either blank or you made the descriptions using titles and other information in the database.
Mm-hmm.
I spent weeks just figuring out how to write meta descriptions and titles on large sites.
I always approached it in the way I've told clients is that, never mind keywords and stuff. I just said this is the spot on the SERP where we need to put a marketing message in to grab people's attention and get them into the page. It doesn't necessarily have to say everything about what's going on that page, etc., but it just needs to have something which is compelling to bring them into it, and that comes back to intention, etc., what people are looking for. So
Right.
the problem lies in when your page isn't just focused on one thing, but it's actually doing several different things. And I think Google are right to rewrite that description depending upon what the search term is. But as you say, they've got it wrong in the past, but it's getting better.
It's also page. You could write a page on one thing and then rank for another thing, and then that description doesn't work. So that's when you'll see it rewritten. Also, one thing I did notice, I felt in the past that Google didn't like to see marketing messages in the meta descriptions. They definitely were telling you to go ahead and do it now, to the point of putting your address and phone number right in the meta
yeah, I
description.
saw that yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I saw it too yesterday. I thought that was pretty interesting because that's a direct about face as far as I'm concerned.
They don't do that often, but that's definitely another one. Yeah.
Well, I think because they can understand the intent of these words a lot better now. they're more comfortable with that kind of thing.
Yeah, because in certain situations, it's the right thing. That's what the people are looking
Right.
for.
Yeah,
So just saying no to all of that just doesn't make any sense. Because there always is going to be situations where those types of information are needed. So yeah, good.
Well, I know, an awful lot of folks got really up in arms when they saw that Google was ignoring their meta description and deciding what to put in the SERP. And, and I understand that, especially with they were really crappy excerpts early on. But from what I'm seeing over the last 6 months or so, it doesn't bother me. Sometimes they're closer. In fact, you look at some of these client sites, their idea of a meta description was, they'd have been better off blank. And they're getting pretty darn good at it. I have to assume that this is largely driven by their AI efforts, their learning algorithms. But there's going to be a bunch of humans looking at that and deciding whether or not this is a good direction to continue in or not. At least you certainly hope there is.
I think the title rewriting taught them some things too. That
Yeah.
they are applying those to the meta descriptions now.
But I think it's reasonable that they would adjust their meta description to be more in line with the user search query. I mean, we all know
That
what
makes
this is.
that makes sense because it's query directed, right? When you write a meta description, it's for that page, right? But the way I understand it now, what is it called? Passages. So passages may find something that is the right answer for somebody on that page, even though the page is about Y, the passage is about X.
Sure.
So
That's why I think they started rewriting titles and now doing the same thing with meta descriptions.
I saw one the other day, somebody shared it with me, where they had actually, I forget what the query was now, but it was something to do with refurbishing something. Anyway, the target page in the SERP was the FAQ. And the title shown in the SERP was the question of like number 17 out the FAQ. The SERP showed that as the question. Showed it as the title. And I thought that was interesting. But
That would probably be in an H tag, right? The question.
yeah, one would assume. I didn't check that, but I would assume it'd be at least an H2 or 3.
2, yeah.
Just lost you, Terry.
So what
my
you
point.
saw, I'm just verifying if I'm understanding this right. So what you saw was the title was changed to a question because it answered the query.
The query had to do with refurbishing,
Okay,
and the question mentioned rebuilding or rebuilt. Okay. And Google made that connection and showed the question verbatim in the SERP as though it were the title. Okay. And then the link went to the FAQ page.
oh, okay, so they probably did pull it from H2 or H3.
Well, it's certainly a possibility, but I don't think that Google would have to find it in a heading to identify it.
So they can still just pull it
Okay.
out as a passage and put
They could,
the
sure.
title, yeah, okay.
But they do use headings if
Oh, yeah.
they don't like the title. That's why I mentioned that.
Yeah.
Wondered if it was in a heading. And also, if the query was that question, they would do that as well.
Yeah, and it
As they
basically was.
rewrite titles.
The only difference was the query was on refurbish and the question was on
Was
rebuild,
rebuilt.
which is
That's
very
something
similar.
I wanted to mention. I was doing some research. I worked for a printer company, right? And they were, they wanted to sell previously owned printers. I said, you're not selling cars, you're selling printers. That didn't have a single freaking query.
Not
But
one.
what I thought was interesting was used printers was used interchangeably with refurbished,
Hmm.
Yeah, I would imagine refurbished would have. had
which
a
that's more
reasonable
than a
value.
synonym though. That's
Oh, yeah.
That's different. Yeah, it is different.
like attorney and lawyer.
Well, you know, but from a
Okay.
vector, if you look at the vector mindset, there is some similarity there. But yeah, they're definitely different. That's inferring a lot.
It's inferring that any used printer is refurbished, which
Any
is not.
refurbished printer is used.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but every used printer is not refurbished.
it's
Yeah,
not
That's right.
refurbished.
like some old guys are sexy, but every old guy isn't. Don't everybody talk at once.
I think some of the SEOs got upset by the meta descriptions getting rewritten were the ones that was mostly their job, rewriting meta descriptions.
All right.
And I can understand why they get upset by that, because they say their job disappeared. But there we go.
I did some testing a while back, and it has been a couple years, so we'll let it go. We'll leave that as where it is. But on some e-commerce websites where we just simply didn't waste the effort writing meta descriptions,
Doesn't make a difference.
and because we knew Google was going to pick pretty much what they wanted to anyway.
Right.
So we just made sure we wrote all of the product descriptions as more of a call to action than just a generic description of, you know, this is a blue widget, it is white and has spots. Those are ridiculous descriptions anyway, but that's what we usually see. So we went ahead and just wrote really good product descriptions and didn't waste any time on the meta descriptions, and saw no difference between those products and sites and the ones that we did spend all the time and effort writing really great meta descriptions.
I had a client a couple of years ago that had never put any meta descriptions in. They only had about 800 products, and they decided, somebody told them they needed to have meta descriptions, so they hired us to write the meta descriptions throughout. And 6 months after the fact, saw nothing after doing them, gained nothing whatsoever. Their take on that was, you write shitty meta description. Okay, okay, fine.
No,
Yeah.
because Google doesn't really take a meta description into account on ranking. It's only for
Yeah.
the purposes of the
Yeah,
search.
but that talk about falling on deaf ears.
You know what is, I use the meta description for? The short description that
The
would go
excerpt.
underneath the product in a subcategory. I'd use them that way. That makes time to write them, because then you can write them as a group for that page to help that page rank for that subcategory or that product type. That makes it worth your time on an e-commerce site. You have to leverage that, but I agree with Steve. If you're not using them another way, they aren't that good, unless you have a search function that also uses it.
Yeah.
But heaven help you if another SEO comes in behind you and sees you didn't do it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Throw you
my
right
God.
under that bus.
They are very happy to throw people under that bus. And it's like, no,
See,
it's
I
not.
would- See, that I never understood that, why people throw the guy before them under the bus. What do you get for it? Nothing.
Well, but that's what a lot of people do, is they make themselves feel better about themselves by making the other guy look like an idiot. They're demonstrating how wonderfully wise they are to this
What
client.
does that say about that person?
Well, yeah, but unfortunately, an awful lot of clients fall for that crap too.
Yeah, they do.
Well, and a lot of clients need you to justify why you're there.
Sure.
Yeah,
And-
those guys
and-
don't last long.
And a
Because
lot of
they-
clients don't like paying for strategy. They want to pay for
Because
execution.
they're trying to justify why they spent the money on having you there.
But if you don't have a strategy, the execution is seldom successful.
Yeah.
I think the strategy I'll be pushing forward in the future will be, certainly with e-commerce stuff, is don't write anything in your descriptions. We'll leave that. We'll run the pages for a certain amount of time, and then we'll pick a few and see if we can maybe tip them, maybe page 2 stuff, and see if we can have a description to get things working on that. And then you're focusing all your effort just on a few. And if that works, great. We know potentially then what to do for others if we need to do that. But certainly there's got to be a marketing message to get people to click through. And I wouldn't be looking at clicks and impressions. I'd be then looking at the whole funnel, all the way down to the cart and out, and see which products I want to give that little extra to.
So you wouldn't be looking to see if that affected the click rate.
Yeah. Well, the purchase rate, you'd be looking at the conversion rate all the way through on that.
And you
might
just
get a lot of
used the
clicks, people
word,
are very interested. So
you just used a word, Simon, that I was going to comment a few minutes ago, and it escaped me. Funnel seems to enter into discussions lately a lot less. Everybody seems to be, are we going back to where we're going to focus on hits? Is everything just traffic? If I've got a million visitors a damn day and only one of them is buying something, I'm doing something wrong.
What I'm seeing in a lot of the SEO and PPC groups these days is people are taking a entirely hands-off approach to anything other than I drove traffic to your website.
Yeah.
What you did with it after you got it is entirely up to you, because that's not part of my job description.
Conversions isn't my problem. Yeah.
And, and I've had that conversation with clients as well. It's like, if your conversions suck, then it's one of a handful of things. The website sucks, the product sucks, or they're sending the wrong target audience to your website. It's got to be one of those 3 things. And, if we were relatively sure the product's great and the website's great, then the only thing left is the audience. And that means the audience is wrong. Trying to convince other people in our industry that they have to look at the whole thing. Well, I'm not getting paid for that. Well, then you need to rethink the way you're running your business, because if all I had to do was drive traffic, I'd be a millionaire by now.
Yeah.
Many times over.
I wouldn't even take a job like that.
I was just talking about that this morning because they were thinking about traffic, and they're like these heritage articles that get a lot of traffic for the website, and they said, well, we need more of those because we're getting traffic to those, and I had tried a couple of times to be very logical, right? And theoretical. And finally this morning I said, it's like you're in business to sell tires and all of your articles are about windshields. You're just going to get the wrong people coming to your website. It doesn't matter what, if there's a disconnect, nothing's going to happen. I mean, it's cool to get traffic, but if it's the wrong traffic, it's not benefiting your business.
It's not cool. It's just a warm fuzzy that means nothing.
Yeah.
People don't say targeted traffic and just say, I'm getting them lots of traffic.
Yeah.
There's a difference, believe me.
Big difference. Yeah. Yeah. One of the commonalities that almost every website out there has is their single source of traffic is the same across all of them. It's Google.
Yeah.
And as Terry has been wont to say many times, Google ain't never bought a goddamn thing from me. So, traffic doesn't mean squat. If it's targeted, then you're doing something. Then maybe you can blame the client for having a lousy conversion.
Traffic's only good if you're selling ads.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
By the impression.
I think as an SEO as well, if you're not considering the whole user journey and the business itself, if you're just doing that front piece and handing it off, I think you're doing the business a disservice. Today, because there's been a change in the UK government, we've been firefighting PR stuff and press releases and stuff. It's got nothing to do with SEO at all. we don't even do PR, but we do for this one client because they need it because they haven't got anybody else who can do it with them. So we're doing it for them. And it's like, we don't do PR, but here we are at 5:30 at night, bashing out a news release for them. Yeah, I think you really do need to take a holistic approach to the whole environment that's going on, and not just the website, although I've always believed that's a hub for digital pieces, but you need to know what else is going on in their communications outside as well, in other forms, so you can join it all up together. Otherwise, you're not going to get this conversion. You know, the reason for the website being there doesn't
Like
manifest itself.
if you're not able to work on the site, right? If you don't have control of the site, which is the only time that you're not responsible for what happens once they get there. I can't do SEO like that. Like that's link building. That's not SEO.
Yeah. It's true. That's link building to me is more. I've never done link building. By the way, to me, it's a PR piece. It really is. It's a digital PR piece, although people like to dress it up as being some sort of fancy SEO stuff, but it's not. It's digital PR, really. I'll probably get shot for saying that by some people, but I think it's important. Well, lots of people tell me it's important, but I'm very much in the camp of build it and they will come, which isn't entirely true. But it depends what you're selling.
Wasn't 98, but not much long after that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The good old days.
Yeah, for sure.
We're awful quiet, Steve.
You know, it's been a long week. And it's
I think
almost Wednesday.
Take advantage
still
of this
watching-
opportunity, this lull in the conversation to show off what you got 9 hours.
Oh,
worth of
yeah, let's
yesterday.
see.
Yeah, 9 hours of sitting in a
9
chair getting
hours.
class.
Oh, wow.
It only stings a little.
I've got a sleeve that I just pull on.
There you go.
There you go.
And it takes what, 11 seconds? Take it out of the drawer
Yeah,
and pull it
And I
off.
can take it off afterwards as well. And then when I'm old,
And a lot cheaper.
older, I still haven't got an ink tattoo that's spread over. Oh, sorry, Steve. I should be saying this.
Oh,
It's
no,
lovely.
it's fine. No, we just no, it's okay. So I'm going to bring up a really weird question. We were approached by a potential client who wants their website built on the blockchain.
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
The website?
Yeah, they want their website built on the blockchain because it's more secure.
Oh,
And my brain kind of snapped a little bit, going, here's somebody who knows words but not meanings.
Yeah.
Uh,
You can't build a website on blockchain.
No, you can't. Now, you can use blockchain technology on the database that runs the website in the back end,
Or the
but I can't imagine how much slower is that going to make your website. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like,
And-
oh my God, you're going to have to run several servers just for a simple, stupid website because you're not going to be able to tie it to a WordPress site of any kind or any CMS that's already made. You'll have to build a custom CMS up front.
Yep.
I just,
And
and
you
I'm
certainly-
one of those guys. As
certainly
opposed to
won't be
Doc,
more
I'm not one of
secure
those
because
people.
it's on blockchain either.
I'm one of
No,
those
it's
people who
not
can't
like
say
they're-
no to potential clients, but I can't throw really big numbers at them. It's like, I'll let
You've
them
got
say
to.
no.
but the thing is, if it's on blockchain, then surely only one person can own and look at the website at any one time. And that's
Yes.
the person
Well,
who
that's
owns
what
it.
I was trying to figure out. I don't understand. I don't even understand how that became a thing or why they would think that was a thing.
They don't
Uh,
even really know what blockchain is. That's
Yeah,
what
they-
that tells me.
Bingo. That, and I will reiterate my initial comment to Steve when he mentioned this. This person also frequents Truth Social. So
Yeah.
we already know there's an issue here with, what they seem is credible.
So, yeah, like I said, a really big number. And because I am willing to do an awful lot of things for an awful lot of money. I freely admit that. If I had the body for OnlyFans, I would not be sitting here talking to you people.
Yes, you would, but you make us pay.
Well,
you go.
yes, this is true. This is true.
And depending on the body, we might.
Don't
Well,
give many ideas.
you know, there's someone for everybody. There's that whole dad bod thing. I'm wondering if there's a grandpa dad bod thing coming.
That'll be blockchain.
Because you're not likely to need more than one seat at the table at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, off topic,
Oh.
Steve, how's the baby?
The baby calf is, I'm going to say she's probably 85% survival at this point. When we found her, our neighbor who's a calf whisperer gave her a 10% chance to make it through the night.
Yeah, it looked
And
gruesome.
so we're now, what are we, a week down the road, almost a week, 7
Yeah.
days. And she still lives in the garage, but she does get daily or several times a day. She gets a walk down the driveway to go see mom and nurse because she doesn't like the bottles. And yeah, it's a lot of work. It's one of the reasons I'm very, very tired because, you know, we've got so much, there's always drama on the farm, but I think she's going to be okay. It's just going to be a couple more weeks of healing before we can leave her out on her own. The big issue now is she lost so much fur on her back. Any amount of time outside and she's going to get really badly sunburned. And we can't have that. That would put us right back to where we were. So yeah, baby calf is doing much better. I really think she's going to be okay. She's just going to be a little behind. And that's okay too. And her Nick and our granddaughter named her Miracle because it was going to be a miracle if she made it through the night.
Oh,
Well, that's a good name. Talking of cat whispering, I learned many years ago to horse whisper. I'll give you a demonstration. Horse.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our cows don't generally let you get that close to them. And they have, most of them have horns, so nothing good comes from it getting that close to them.
yeah.
But yeah, it's
I was just thinking about her back. Can you use something like, you know, they have those horse blankets for horses. They must have them for colts.
well, yeah. She's way too small for that. What we've got on her is a medicinal clay that you. It's I don't understand it. This is way beyond my knowledge base, but it's a clay you pack on them, and it hardens to protect the skin. And then as the clay breaks down, it takes the dead skin with it. And apparently it tastes terrible.
Treatment.
Well, yeah, but apparently it tastes terrible because every time mom licks her back, she makes a funny face. And I think next week we're going to grab some of my old T-shirts and see if we can't get a T-shirt on her, and see how that goes.
You say that clay, when it dries, it takes the dead skin with it, doesn't it? Take some of the fur with it too?
Well, there's no fur there now.
There's no fur there. Yeah, it's a big
No,
open.
it is all gone.
You hope that there's going to be some new growth coming out. Be ashamed.
That's the plan. Well, that's why we got to get her. We got to get her healed up because, okay, we're going into the deep growth. So plug your ears if you don't like this kind of information. She managed to somehow get injured while we were out of town, and laying in the mud, her skin was infested with maggots and fly larvae and all of that. Yeah, there goes Terry. And so we had to wash her multiple times, several baths, get all of that off of and out of her. And now we've got to get all the dead skin off so the new skin can come in and then the fur can come in, which is hopefully why we'll be able to put a T-shirt on her next week, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's going to be an entertaining, probably another month yet before we can turn her back out.
Long.
So
we get her own T-shirt with Miracle Moo on it.
there we go. I will say I find it hysterical now because the baby understands what the process is. So when she gets clipped into a halter and we open the big garage door, she starts trotting down the driveway, and my wife has to run to keep up.
Mom.
Yeah, pretty much. She runs all the way to mom, and she starts calling about halfway there, and mom meets her at the gate, and we put them in there together. And about 45 minutes later, we pull apart and bring her home. And that walk back to the garage is a lot slower. She's
Yeah.
So there's your farm tip for the day.
Well,
And Simon, apparently you have downgraded your office space into technology that doesn't break during a nuclear attack.
Yes. It's a mid-journey effort.
Nice.
That's all completely generated, doesn't exist.
Yeah,
And I
I read an
can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
It's something like abandoned. I was doing stuff about abandoned buildings and stuff, and I just came up with I think it was abandoned signal box or something.
Right. I
Got
read an
that.
article last week where there was an art contest and somebody entered some AI generated art, and that won first place. And the artists were up in arms and quite unhappy
They
about
were.
this.
oh, I saw that. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't like being beat by a program? Get better.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. I just wonder if at a certain point we're gonna go too far. I mean, we see this in every industry, like when CAD first entered the jewelry industry or even architecture, and then we went to milling and 3D printing for waxes for jewelry, and at every stage along the way, the people who were doing it the old way throw a fit because they see their way being attacked. And they're not wrong, but what do you do?
I got a
You
friend
can't just
who's a
say
pattern
don't
maker
pay
for, a friend of mine is a pattern maker for injection mold builder. And he got really up in arms when, I forget the name of the other program now, but it's similar to AutoCAD 3D, that generates a lookalike, a rotatable three-dimensional model.
Yeah.
So you can look at it and say, yes, that's it. And then the pattern maker actually physically carves one, okay, that to go into the mold building process. And all of a sudden his job just got eliminated because now somebody can go buy this $20,000 piece of software and do this all day long. He was extremely upset. I said, hey, the guy, the local livery stable was probably really pissed off when cars came out too, but it's just the way the world works.
And for me, I came into the jewelry industry backwards, from traditional, because I came in as somebody who knew how to draw CAD with an architecture background, but I knew absolutely nothing about jewelry, but I understood the software. And so they brought me in and I was doing the software and starting to do more design work, but I had no idea how to actually make jewelry. And it showed in some of my designs. The jewelers would come back and go, we can't make this. And I didn't understand why. And then so they sent me to school to learn how to be a jeweler. And then I understood why, and it made me better. And fortunately, I worked at a store that was willing to spend money on the education of their employees, where you get Doc, your friend, his business, the business that he worked for, if they had invested a little bit of money in him to go learn how to do this, they would have gotten somebody far better at it.
Oh yeah.
Because he knew how to actually make them. And now you've given him a better tool. And not only has he learned a new skill, but you've made him 10 times more productive.
Yep.
And I'm baffled when companies and corporations in general simply refuse to spend money on education.
There's a brilliant retort that I heard of years ago, which I bring up in situations like this. And I use it today because there's something going off in the SEO world about somebody outing somebody who they didn't like, who worked for them. And that is, if you don't train people, there's a lot of firms out there that won't train people because they perceive that if they train them, then they'll leave.
Mhm.
And the retort is, if you don't train them, they might not leave.
Yeah, they might stay.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's great.
And what's funny is, yeah, you are going to get some people who you train up and they're going to want to go. But what we found was that if you were constantly willing to train your people, they had no reason to go. Because, I mean, we had an annual budget. You were allowed to go, spend X number of dollars per year on your continuing education in the industry. Whether that was 3 little classes or 1 great big one, the owner didn't care as long as you didn't all go at the same time. But it was really nice because that was budgeted in. And I'm really hoping that as Web Narwhal evolves, we can embed some of that mindset into the company so that when we bring people in as full-time hires or even part-time hires, we invest in those people, which hopefully, you're going to have a percentage of them that walk away from you, and that's fine. But, it'd be nice to be able to invest in people who, it's like, why would I leave? I've got a great deal.
Just so long as
get
you don't
time to
expect me
learn.
to attend a bookkeeping course, we're good.
See, I think if businesses actually looked at their employees as apprentices, they would be much further ahead. To me, most people leave agencies because they've been pegged into that hole and they're tired of doing that particular job.
Yeah.
They want to move on because you know what? This is an exciting career if you're not pegged into a hole like that where you're doing the same mind-numbing work. You might as well be working in a freaking factory.
So,
So
that's a good way to build appreciation, because it's a big factor of how appreciated your employee feels for their efforts. It's not just how much they're getting in their paycheck every week. It's also how much respect they're treated with, how much they're valued as a contributor, their opinions and ideas. So this is one way, that I think you're valuable enough to let you decide what you feel like you'd like to get more knowledge in, to let you decide, here's, you've got this budget. Every quarter you can go spend X number of dollars. What would you like to learn? What would you like to be better at? That says a lot to them. And that's a big factor in retention.
yeah,
Long ago when I had teenagers would come after school and help me. It was a world of paper and help me with things in the business. And I would tell them, there's this, all, it's a long list of stuff that need to be done. And I said, which are the things that you want to do, because those are the things they cared about. And, one person said they liked filing, bless her heart. Anyway, because she liked putting things away. And I said, but the important thing is for me, when a client calls me on the phone, I need to find their file within 30 seconds. So it's really important to, put this in the right place. I mean, we have stuff online now, but and different people who came, would choose different tasks. And they liked working there because they felt they were using their skills, however much a 17-year-old has skills in office work, but that they were happy and they would show up because they were doing the stuff that they liked doing. And I think that when you educate the people and your team, you're like, 30 years later or something, when you educate people, they do feel valued and they do feel like they're they're a contributing part of the business. I I have always felt this from long, long ago, that every employee needs an overview of the entire business. They might not know about different parts of the business, but they at least need to know what the big picture is and how all these different pieces work together to make the business go. And I think education is another part of that. You know, the more you learn, the more you can contribute.
Well, and that's a two-way street too, because each of those people, to be truly effective, they need to know who's going to be affected downstream
Yeah.
by how they do their job, and who upstream can help me be more efficient or less efficient sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, because again, you're looking at the whole company, and
Mhm.
all these departments exist for a reason, and they all have some overlap with somebody else. So, that trying to, stay in your lane, you're responsible for the mechanical drawing. All you got to do is do the drafting. Never mind the building. Well, I can make anything fit on paper, but the poor bastard out there pouring the concrete is going to have a lot to say about what I put on paper when he's trying to pour uphill.
Yes, that's right. It was just what Steve was saying about
Yeah, architects
jewelry, the
and
same
field
thing.
engineers don't always agree on what, yeah, it might look great on paper, but it's just not doable or not economically doable. So having that cross understanding is important.
It's really important.
Well, we're at the top of the hour.
Well, that was
A good
quick.
chat. Thanks everybody for showing up. And I hope the throngs don't trample each other getting out of the auditorium.
Have a great week, everyone.
Yeah, thanks
Enjoy.
everyone.